There's no denying it anymore. Autumn is here, and though I'm not a huge fan of the cold mornings and evenings, this does rekindle some of my best memories from my childhood, because this time of the year my grandma used to make her, for me, famous eggplant salad. It was the time of harvest, it was the time when the eggplants were ripening up, and you know, it's a bit bittersweet because that meant that school was coming back. You know, about 15th of September, school was starting again, and that meant I had to leave the countryside where I was to spend my summer holidays with my grandma and go back to the city and start school. But still, that eggplant salad was phenomenal, and every year around this time it's like a clock, it's like an internal clock, you know. I just feel the urge to eat it, and luckily I know the recipe, and today I want to share my grandma's recipe with you for this phenomenal, delicious, amazing eggplant salad. So let's start. Now in the description I'll write down a very simple ingredient list and recipe, and in the video I'll just take you through the process, just so we make it as streamlined and as easy as possible. The start of the show and the main ingredient is the eggplant, which we'll have to roast. To start roasting the eggplants, either on a cast iron pan or grill like I am right now, on a barbecue grill. You can do it over in the house over the stove, as long as you use a cast iron utensil. On an electric stove, it works anywhere, you know. Just I am suggesting cast iron because it maintains the temperature constant once it heats up. Now if you want them to be extra delicious, try roasting them over a wood burning fire. This will take in the smokiness from the wood burning, and it will give it a flavor that you will never forget. Trust me on this. Depending on the intensity of your fire, you want to flip them to the next side after about 10 minutes. You'll know that the active side is done when it became soft and juicy. Make sure to roast it well on all sides, otherwise you'll have chewy and undercooked bits of eggplant in your salad, and we don't want that. This process takes a bit of time, but trust me, it's worth it. The way I personally test them to see if they're fully cooked is I just lightly poke on each side, and if they're soft and juicy, then we can move to the next step. Sometimes we just have to feel things to know if they're done, and I don't know, call me primitive if you want, but this method never fails me. When you feel that you're almost done roasting them, find a container that has a lid and that can be closed properly, because once they're fully cooked, we want to put them in that container, cover them with the lid, and let them steam. So basically we're creating a DIY steamer. Please don't take this as that you need to take the eggplants now and put them in a steamer to steam them. So I want to clarify that. You're just going to take the finished eggplants that have finished roasting, put them in this container, cover it with a lid, and the vapor or the steam from the heat of the eggplants will create this steamer effect. And we'll leave them in this pot covered with a lid for about 30 minutes. This is going to do a couple of things. One is going to steam with the residual heat any uncooked bits, if any. Secondly, is going to steam the skins, so that when we're going to go to the next stage, which is peeling them, we will have a very easy time peeling the eggplants and removing only the skin and not the flesh. And lastly, by waiting those 30 to 40 minutes in this DIY steamer, it will allow the eggplants to cool off enough so that when we start peeling them by hand, it's not going to scald our fingers. Now peeling is very straightforward. You grab the eggplant by the tail and with one hand, and with the other hand you just peel the skin, trying to make sure that you don't remove too much of the flesh. If you've steamed them, like I mentioned before, properly, then this process should be very easy and only the skin should come off of the eggplants. The most important thing in this step is to make sure that you peel the eggplants in the container that they steamed in. Now we take the skins and we put them in a separate container, but we want to peel them on top or inside of that container, because there's going to be a lot of juice dripping from the eggplants themselves. At the end of this whole process, we want to save that juice, because it's literally the essence of the roasted eggplants, and we want to use it in the finished product. So please, please, please don't waste that juice that's coming out of them, because it's essential for this recipe. So peel the eggplants in the container while removing the skins in a separate one. You'll notice that the tail bit that you've been holding the eggplant to peel it is quite stiff. It's quite fleshy, and it will be very hard to remove it by hand. So with a knife you can just remove or disengage the meaty part of the eggplant from the tail, and that's going to be the easiest way to take it off. Once you're done with this process, you can compost the tails and the skins, because honestly I haven't found a better use for them apart from just composting them and returning them to the soil. And please make sure to filter the liquid of any solids and keep that juice separately in a cup, in a bowl, whatever you have handy. We will need it later. By this time the eggplants should have cooled off properly, so now we can just take a knife and chop them. We don't want to chop them in a blender, in a blitzer, anything like that. We want to chop them by hand as small as we safely can. I've tried blitzing them, I've tried putting them in the blender. The problem is that they become a watery mess. So by just chopping them by hand, it keeps some kind of molecular integrity, and it gives us the end product, the eggplant salad that we want. Trust me and learn from my mistake. Don't try to get the easy way out here and put them in a blender. You will not have an eggplant salad at the end of it. You'll just have a watery mess. That being said, chop the eggplants as small or as large as your palate prefers it. And once you're done, remember that juice that I kept whining about so you don't lose it? Take that filtered juice and put it on top of the finished chopped eggplants. Now we're ready for the next stage. For the herbs, I like to use fresh basil and oregano, but honestly, based on your taste and your flavor buds, you can use any fresh herb that you prefer. Mint, thyme, dill, anything goes. You customize it to fit your own purpose. But what we don't want to miss is garlic, onion, and mayo. These three are key ingredients for this recipe. Speaking of mayo, I like to whip a quick batch of homemade mayo. It's easy, it's quick, and it's delicious. But you know, you can use any type of mayo that you have handy, any store-bought mayo, vegan mayo, even anything. We need a creaminess to add to the salad so that it becomes the dish that it needs to become. Whichever mayo you decide to go with, add it to a large bowl, and in it put the garlic, the onion, the herbs, and mix them all together very well. Once this stage is done, add the chopped eggplants and mix them again until fully incorporated, and taste it for the first time. Now, everybody has a different palate, so you may want a lot of salt and pepper, or you may want a bit, but taste it first and then season it with salt and pepper, so you make sure you don't over season it. I personally love eating this dish on top of a freshly toasted slice of bread, especially if done over an open fire or a wood burning fire. Again, that smokiness, I don't know what's that all about. I'm just addicted to smoky, smoked things. But I understand that not everybody is going to be able to do that, so toast from a toaster works very well. And if you're not a big fan of bread or bread-like products, any crunchy medium is going to work. You know, a salty cracker, anything in this area of products is going to work well. You know, this dish just reminds me of all the great times I had as a kid. My best and sweetest memories were from the times that I used to spend my school holidays in the countryside with my grandma, think between the age of 5 and 16. All my school holidays were spent in the countryside there, and I learned so many things from my grandma and my aunts and uncles about nature, about harvesting, about growing food, tending to livestock, identifying medicinal herbs, you name it. You know, they lived by the land, from the land, and for the land. And this dish was, in a way, a timekeeper. You know, I knew that when my grandma made eggplant salad, I had a couple of days left because I had to go back to school. It was close to 15th of September, which was when school started back home. And it was a bittersweet thing. It was a delicious dish, but he also told me that I will soon have to go away from that magical place, back to the city, which I wasn't very excited about. But still, it helped me celebrate the time that I spent there, the couple of months that I had the extraordinary blessing of enjoying again in another year, and just gave me hope and patience to the next holiday season, when I would go back there and continue my adventures with all my friends and all the animals and everything that I had there. I really hope you're gonna try this recipe. I really hope you're gonna try to follow the steps as best as I could explain them, because I want you to experience my childhood through this dish. I want you to have the joy and the adventure that I used to have as a kid. So with that being said, thank you very much for watching, for liking, for subscribing, and please share it with anybody who would appreciate this dish, or who wants to try new things, and who is bored of a sea of pre-packaged, pre-preserved and chemical shit that we all have in the shops these days. Do it yourself. Trust me, it does taste better. See you next time.